Hi. Welcome to Through the Hair with the long-haired freaky dude. Today's topic of discussion is on the offensive nature of veteran apparel. There seems to be a rise in stories about military veterans who are refused entry to places and where military-associated items and apparel are banned from certain settings. The circumstances vary greatly from story to story, but there seems to be one key word in common with all of them, and that word is offended. Nearly every cause of this disrespect towards veterans is because a party felt offended by their presence in one way or another. Before we hurry up and pick sides, let's stop, analyze the facts, consider the laws and morals involved, and formulate a logical, concise opinion, as we should always do. First, let's consider the two sides of these circumstances. There's the side that fully supports veterans walking around in military attire, and there's the side which finds it offensive. Now, let's stop to ponder why one would find this gesture offensive. Historically, there are numerous reasons for being offended by soldiers. Perhaps the soldiers have authority over national matters, in which case they invade the rights and privacy of citizens. Perhaps the soldiers come from a foreign nation and don't share the same national pride as native citizens. Such was the case with the British Redcoats in colonial America. But that's not quite what's going on today. No. These soldiers and veterans are fellow American citizens, like those being offended. Nor do these soldiers possess some legal superiority to abuse non-soldiers. So, what is it then? Now, there aren't too many testimonials that can be found concerning this matter, so we may need to do some inferencing. Perhaps one reason for this is because people think soldiers are evil, or that they do evil things. After all, the job of soldiers is to kill people. But let's propose that this statement is false. The job of an American soldier, in general, is to defend the U.S. Now there's a big difference between defending something and killing someone. Not all soldiers are killers. In fact, very few are. But sometimes, in the act of defending one's country, it does become necessary to injure or kill those attacking it, because they put them in imminent danger. In other words, they are faced with a life and death situation. It may be argued that they put themselves in this situation, and that they didn't need to kill all of those people that they killed. But there are two parts to this. First, in all the cases of today's America, all of the soldiers of the U.S. military have voluntarily enlisted, so that they may defend their country, freedoms, family, etc. Generally, they voluntarily enslave themselves to the government for a contracted amount of time for the sake of protecting what they love. That means they must now go and do whatever it is the government feels will further protect and defend our country. Sometimes defense means going to attack someone else. And sometimes it means killing someone who isn't necessarily putting them into direct danger. But when it comes to war, sometimes that must be done in order to efficiently protect what is being defended. But that in itself is another complex moral topic, something for another video. We won't go into that any further here. The second part of this story is that, as having indentured themselves to the defensive will of the U.S. government, they have very little control over what it is they must do as soldiers. If soldiers sign up to defend and are told they must kill to do so, then they will do it. If we have a problem with that, then it's not the soldiers we disagree with, but rather the ways of the government. If that's the case, then we must direct our offensiveness towards the government. For soldiers are merely the puppet, and the government, the hand, the puppeteer. We shouldn't be offended by the puppet, but the hand which controls it. Another reason one might be offended is because they think soldiers themselves are obscene, rude, and disrespectful. Some see them only as village burning, mother raping, child killing savages. But not all soldiers are this way. The actions of a few bad soldiers seem to have contaminated the way we view all soldiers, which is no good. We must learn to see past this fog of evil emitted by a few sour apples and see that majority which is truly good. To look at this from another perspective, just because someone of a single race shoots a man doesn't make all members of that race evil or murderers. Just because a single person of a certain religion blows up a building doesn't make all members of that religion bad. Likewise, because one soldier burns a village doesn't make all soldiers that way. Unless, for certain, 100% of a population acts a certain way, which is nearly statistically impossible, then we should refrain from such stereotypes from guiding our opinions and actions. The last major thing which comes to mind is that, though soldiers are not generally harmful or violent by nature, their stereotype is, and this might cause some parents to fear that having their children exposed to something even associated with that kind of evil could in effect cause them to be evil. If their children were allowed to interact with, admire, and be molded by a man who shoots guns at other people, then they fear it could negatively impact their child. But again, we can use the same logic that we used previously. Just because one man of a certain race shoots and kills someone, would you cut your child off from everyone of that race? We must learn to evaluate people individually, not collectively. Now, let's analyze the more solid facts of today's incidents. There was one case where a veteran tried to enter his daughter's school while fully dressed in military attire. The school's security guard forbade the man from entering while in his military attire. Why? Because the guard felt that the veteran in his soldier's uniform might offend someone. He further proclaimed that he was breaking the school's dress code. It should be noted that the commissioner of the school, a veteran himself, later sincerely apologized for the incident and declared that no such rule exists, and that he will work to make the fact known. Happy ending. Oh, it should also be known that the commissioner was also a veteran himself, so, happy ending there. But it's the little thing which is somewhat troubling. The guard was scared that it would offend someone. A rule banning military attire wasn't actually in the dress code, but the guard had a legitimate reason to think that it was, or that it should be. Another case which popped up is where a fireman was asked to remove a veteran sticker of his father's that he had placed on his locker. According to the fireman, it was irreplaceable, and he refused to remove it. As a result, he and a few other supporting firemen were suspended from duty and are currently awaiting further action. The department's reason for wanting the firefighter to remove the sticker? It might offend someone. The department feared someone would enter the firehouse, either through visitation or through emergency, and that they would see the sticker and as a result would be offended. As can be seen from these two articles, it's not just the fact that people were offended, but more so from the fact that people were scared of offending someone else, scared of offending other people. Herein lies a topic of discussion much deeper and much broader than the current one. Why are we so scared to offend people? Is it because it might hurt their feelings? Why are we scared to hurt someone's feelings? We can't appeal to the feelings of everyone. Unfortunately, no matter what we do, it will always hurt and offend someone. It's nearly impossible to appeal to 100% of a population. So why do we try so hard to do so? Yes, it's a good thing to strive for. Indeed it is. But that should not be taken to the extremity where heritage, talent, prosperity, Uniqueness, difference, and individuality, opinions are synonymous with being offensive. We should only consciously go so far as to respect the opinions and actions of others, but not to conform to them. Doing that only takes away our heritage, talent, prosperity, uniqueness, difference, individuality. When those things are removed from a person, what's left? Nothing remains but an empty shell. But fear of offending people is not entirely the source of these actions. Perhaps the says that it is so, but maybe even truly thinks it is so, but it isn't. If that were so, we would have a paradox, which is the reason why we can't always appeal to everyone. While the man removing veterans was so as not to offend people who hate veterans, he in return offends the veterans. No matter how you slice it, that is almost always the case. The veteran is offended because the guard or boss or whoever doesn't want to offend someone else. So, perhaps they are choosing to offend the least amount of people. They choose the lesser of two evils. But statistics show that there are far more veterans and veteran supporters in America than there are veteran haters. That can be proven through the fact that we have voted numerous times for our tax dollars to go towards giving the soldiers food, schooling, training, retirement, healthcare, etc. And that, well, a lot of people enlist. So, if not to offend the least amount of people, then what? From here we can but only assume. The stated facts show one way, but logically there seems to be some deeper, subconscious personal drive which compels people to do these things, such as the 3 items listed earlier. For one's own personal benefit, not to make someone else happy or unoffended. Is there anything wrong with that? Not at all. The men who made these decisions to ban military attire had the absolute freedom and legal right to do so. If the school had ultimately chosen to refuse the soldier, they would have had that right. They are a business, and as businesses are permitted to do, they can accept and decline whoever they please. Much as the soldier had the right to wear his uniform in public, the school had the right to decline him because of it. Same goes for the firefighters. Both sides were legally in the right. No wrong done. And we should support and praise that that's the way it is. But that's not to say that we have to agree with both sides. Ever hear of the quote by Voltaire, "I may disagree with what you say, but I defend your right to say it"? That is probably the case here with one side or the other, whichever you choose. With that said, we need to defend the people who defend us, who defend our right to be able to do that. Some of us might disagree with how they go about doing things, but it is nonetheless a direct result of these men that we and our families are alive and free. Too often we seem to forget that. Without these men risking their lives day in and day out, serving in the harshest of conditions, being broken in every way possible, these are the men who are supporting this country. Our fate rests on their shoulders, and we need to respect that. Constantly, America is faced with dangerous external pressures, mostly as a result of poor decisions we've made in our past, but again, that's another video. But nonetheless, it calls for reason to defend ourselves. If we aren't going to stand behind our troops who do just that, then we might as well stand in front of them. Which side you ultimately choose to agree with is, of course, up to you. I just ask that you do your research. Don't rely solely on the facts and propositions which I've presented in this video. Look up your own articles on the matter to read. Question everything. Try to find answers for these questions. I am nowhere near being unbiased, nor have I come close to fairly representing each side. My logic is sure to have loopholes. So be sure to take the things stated in this essay, other essays, articles, and the workings of the world in general, and question them with boldness. There's an increase of disrespect towards our soldiers and veterans because what they do or are thought of doing offends people, but it's nothing more than an increase. This is not some problem which has plagued a majority of Americans. Probably no more than 1% or a few percent of Americans feel this way towards our troops. In fact, a majority of veterans spoken with claim to have never received disrespect of any degree, which is quite remarkable and something to be proud of. The only reason it was addressed today is because it's on the rise, and anything on the rise of this nature should be revealed and taken with precaution. I'm Jakey Steve, the long-haired freaky dude. Thank you for watching Through the Hair. Have a good day.